So it's April 2nd, 2020. I'm going to give you another update on COVID-19, the coronavirus, and transportation impacts. So cases worldwide have doubled approximately since last week. The United States now has over 200,000 cases. Italy and Spain are both just over 100,000. And China, Germany, and France are the next three countries between 50,000 and 80,000. In North Carolina, the number of cases has quadrupled in the same 1 week time period. And travel restrictions continue to grow and continue to be in place. Some borders have been closed to everyone except their own citizens, closed to some nationalities. Some countries are having arriving passengers quarantined that arrive from certain countries. Some countries have health certificates required, enhanced screenings, and then there are some countries with no restrictions. This is some flight data showing the 7-day moving average from 2016 to 2020. And what we can see is a general trend. The bottom line there is for 2016, moving up to 2017, 2018, 2019. So there was good growth over that time period. If you look to the left of the graph, you'll see that 2020 was on that same trajectory, higher than those previous years. And then as we look to the past month, that line drops tremendously as flights continue to be canceled. Looking on some bike and pedestrian data, this is information from EcoCounter from Italy, Spain, the UK, and France, looking at bike count trends since there were confinement measures, starting with a base point of the number of days since confinement and then dropping down from there. We do see a bump, for example, in the UK on the weekend where they're doing these bike counts, but overall those counts are down anywhere between 60 and 80%. Looking specifically at Italy, for instance, this is when lockdowns came into place, both before, during the lockdown with only certain municipalities, and then the nationwide lockdown. This graph shows us pedestrian volumes from the Montreal Central Business District. The green line here are the expected daily pedestrian volumes based on historical trends, and then the bars are the actual counts, and we can see that those bars are continuously and consistently lower than what the expectations are, which coincides with schools closing and then the closing of non-essential businesses. So you can see as we move towards the end of March in this graph, we can see that the difference between the expected pedestrian volumes and the actual pedestrian volumes was large, and those are drops in the 80 to 90% range. This is looking at traffic data from NREX, looking at changes in traffic volume from nationwide as the upper left, and then we have data from Seattle, New York, and San Francisco. We can look from Saturday through Friday of this data going from March 14th to March 20th, and we can see those tremendous drops in traffic volumes as well. Looking at some more specific data, I'll go through a few states with this information. This is looking at North Carolina, and we see early March the volumes were tracking as usual, as expected. The bars actually represent the state, and the lines give us the national traffic data. We can see that the bars, as we get into late March, start to match up with the national data and continue to trend with that, where we're seeing drops in traffic volumes in the 30 to 40% range in recent days. This is looking at Florida that has some truck data available, and we can see that the truck volumes are less impacted. There's lower drops in the truck traffic than the passenger vehicle traffic. This is Washington State, and even as we can see that kind of mid-March time frame where even when the passenger vehicle was dropping, the truck volumes were increasing, likely to respond to the surge in the need for groceries, medical supplies, and other things, keeping that supplies and supply chain running. And we can see a similar trend in Montana where actually the truck volumes continue to stay above normal levels even through the most recent days here. Again, likely delivering supplies and keeping that supply chain moving. From a transit standpoint, getting a lot of these transit agencies are continuing to see ridership drop. Overall, down 74% compared to normal. This graph shows us all cities combined and some select cities. We're seeing, again, that 70, 80, 90% drops in ridership across the board for these transit agencies. This is looking at mobility data, so looking just at individuals and how far they travel from home. This is looking at cell phone distance, all relative back to a March 1st start date. And we can see how some of the restrictions have really affected this, where looking at March 23rd, New York essentially has a mobility access of 0, maybe it's in the single digits there, and all these other states continue to drop or level out at low volumes as restrictions are put in place, limiting mobility, discouraging being out of your home to try and stop the spread of the virus. So I'll post this list in the description below so you can click on them, but there's been numerous webinars about transportation and the coronavirus. These are great webinars if you want to check any of these out, from the relief package to airline to general transportation practices and other disease outbreaks. As in previous weeks, if you see any interesting data or information, please share it with me. I'd love to include these in future updates, and thanks to everyone who has provided something so far.